Okay, right now we talking on the subject of children and people having kids. Let me know if I'm wrong on this. I'm just trying to make you think. You know what I'm saying? So, okay, now kids are influenced by so many different things and different avenues now. And you got to think back into simpler times. Like who were, someone's kids influenced by? In the simpler times, when like a couple had kids, the kids were influenced by that couple, the mom and the dad, you know, within the household. And so whatever the mom and dad did within that household, that influenced the kids. And what else influenced the kids? Their surroundings. So whatever school they went to, whatever happened at school, that still influenced them, you know? And then outside of that, when they went to the store, their neighborhood, the children they hung around, that's still, you know, similar to today, school, church, you know, different family events, um, the park, because kids like going to the park in elementary, you know. And if the kids were even younger, their daycare, But for the most part, outside of those things, they're going right back home. And again, being influenced by their parents. So they're gonna reflect their parents a lot. Back in simpler times, because there wasn't as much stuff to do, so they're gonna reflect their parents probably more. They still can reflect their parents a lot today, but it's just a little different. And there's many distractions before. I mean, there were newspapers, magazines, the radio. As time goes on, it's like there are kind of more and more distractions. Because before the television, before TV, the kids had to interact with each other. They had to play games. They had to be outside with each other. And the games that they played, they had to learn from somebody else or their parents, or it had to be taught by somebody that they knew. So the people within the kids' community were the influencers. They were the big influencers, the people that the kids came into contact with in their community. But overall, without, super advanced technology, most of the child's learning, information, ideas, how to dress, talk, move, and act, that's all going to come from their parents and school and the people close to them. And the different social gatherings they go to. There were still big artists, like say if, you know, people were influenced by Elvis. They still were able to listen to Elvis's music, but they weren't able to see what Elvis was doing today. They weren't able to see Elvis's thought in the last 30 minutes or Elvis's thoughts the last 20 days. Like Elvis wouldn't have been as accessible, only his music and certain, appearances could influence anyone or a child. And I'm talking about, yeah, during his prime, of course. But like with less technology, to connect everyone and the influence, most of a child's influence is going to come from their parents, the people around them, and the places that they go. And it's like the more technology that comes, the more a child is able to be influenced. Because, okay, here comes the magazine. Here comes the radio. A child can pick up, oh, let's look at this magazine. And something that they might not have ever knew about, they just read in a magazine that was sitting on a counter in a store. Here comes the radio. All of a sudden, a child is listening to a song they might not even be supposed to be listening to, or they might be too young for it, but the radio, the influence was able to hit them. Here comes the TV. Okay, now, I mean, a child is still going to be mostly around his or her parents if they're in the picture, but the TV will just be another influence to where at first TV was more controlled to where, TV cut off at a certain time. But now TV goes non-stop. So here comes the TV. A certain program's able to influence a child where his or her mom and dad may not even be there or may be there, but the program's able to influence the child. Here comes, a computer, the internet. And see, the more technology that comes, the more things that are able to influence, the child besides the things that's around them. And it also depends, how much the parent is or isn't there. The more technology that comes, the more likely a child can be influenced. Because after the computer and the internet, then there comes the smartphone, the tablet, and those things can stay with you and go with you everywhere. So if you give a kid a phone, the internet, everything's going with that kid everywhere. And the influence of the internet it's like infinite. There's no telling what a kid could accidentally run into or purposely go to because they heard about something at school. You get what I'm saying? And so the parents' influence on the child is kind of in the balance, because a parent can raise a child to be and to grow up and be one way, and before there were less other influences to knock that child off path. But now a parent could, try to show a kid a certain way, depending on the kid's age, but the parent could try to show a kid a certain way, and depending on what the popular trend is on social media or what the popular trend is on the internet, the kid might try to reject it. That's the power of the internet. That's the power of outside forces. And it's going to depend on how stern, how good of a parent that person wants to be. Whether they're going to stay on their principles or not with that child. In this day and age, a couple can have a child, and if they're not in that child's life enough, the child can be so influenced by social media, the internet, and everything else that the child may not even be a lot like its parents and its viewpoints and what he or she wants to do. If the parents aren't in their life enough, the child can be an image of something else. They won't be much like the parent because they're taking all their influence from the internet, from social media, from the most popular trends. Whereas way back when, there was no access to no other social media forces or none of that. Their biggest influence was gonna be their parents. Their biggest influence was gonna be their school teacher. Their biggest influence was gonna be their church pastor and whoever else in their community, not some stranger on the internet. Yes, I'm saying this to make you think about how quickly you want to put all this technology into your child's hands or into somebody else's child's hands, and to recognize the responsibility of doing that, and to recognize that by doing that, you are opening that child up to other influences and maybe to make you think about what influences you're opening the child up to. For you to make your own decision as a parent on if they're at the age that they're ready for that.